here used to, Salvatore, you probably remember, over here was a grocery store called Lorenzetti. It was actually called Woodland Fruit Market. But Italians have this thing, they never call anything by what it's really called. They always give it its own name. And so we called it Primos. Because the guy's name, it was the Lorenzetti family. They were here in the 1920s. And one of the brothers' first name was Primo, and so they called it Primo's Grocery Store. And during the 30s, these grocery stores were really, really important because, you know, it was the Great Depression at the time. It was the Great Depression at the time, and there wasn't a lot of money. And contrary to what people think, the people in Ville Emard actually had more money than the people in Milan, because the average salary was maybe $500 a year. In Milan, it was about $250 a year, because they were working in construction, and when those things closed down, there was less money. I mean, people were working part-time, which you have. Whereas over here, we had the industry, so they had a little more steady income. But the reason I'm pointing out what used to be the grocery store, I don't have a picture of this, unfortunately, is because these guys kept people going during the Depression. So he used to have a nail by the cash, and when you would come in, you would take your groceries, and he would write your order on this thing. He would take that piece of paper, put it on the nail, and then when you got your check and you got paid, you would come here, you would cash your check, he would take out his money that you owed him, and he would give you the rest. So these people supported, there's many grocery stores that were here, and they were able to do this because they were all based on relationships and trust. They knew that you weren't going to screw them because you lived in the same neighborhood with these people. You were going to see them all the time. They knew they were going to get their money. Mont Boulevard used to be more of a French street, and Jolica was more of an Italian street. As you can see now, there's very few things left. Like there's the Tricolore photo studio, which has been closed now for 20 years, and there's only one association that's left over here of Italian. But in the old days, you guys remember, like almost every store here had some, especially after the Second World War, there was a large Italian presence here. So we're going to go to the park.
Wow, I don't know. I don't remember.
It's okay.
It's all right.
It's okay.
Okay, I don't know if you can see it, okay? Now this park is kind of, if anybody wants to sit down, you want to sit down? I worked it out so you can sit down. Somebody sit down. Okay, don't sit down. Okay, wait a second. Also, I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures first in the park. This is, there were 2 movie theaters here in Ville Emard, two of them. One was near the church, the French church, and the interesting thing about that movie theater was that they were not allowed to have their door on Monk. They had to have it on Briand because the church, the priest didn't like the fact that, you know, people were going to the movie. And the other one was down there exactly. So this is the picture in front of one of the movie theaters.
Joyce, what year was that?
This I think.
No.
I think so. There's Monaco and it was Century. One was called Monaco was over there, and Century was the one over there. Okay. Good, we have people. This is Vincenzo Pagnani. This is just to show you Mont Boulevard.
Oh my God.
He always looked after this man.
Always.
And show you some pictures. This is a postcard of Mont Boulevard. Look at this. Now I remember.
A lot of trees.
Yeah. This was Perpetuel Secure was the first church that was founded. Because you know when they had a neighborhood in those days, they had to have a church, right? And this was the Case Populaire that was next to the church. But what you may not realize is that the Case Populaires were always connected to banks. And if you even look today, okay, wherever there's a Case Pop, what are they called now? Desjardins? They're always next to a church. No matter where you go, look at there's one on Allard. and it's next to in front of the church. On Notre Dame and Saint Henry, right? There's this next to church. Pay attention. Whenever you look, you see a Christ spot, because you had to be Catholic in order to deposit your money there. You had to be a member.
It wasn't a bank, it was
That's
a co-op.
right. It was a co-op.
So you had to be a member, you had to first buy a membership, and then you could participate. And if you wanted a mortgage, they would give you a mortgage because the neighbors used to know you. And it used to be the same principle as the grocery store. Instead of going to a bank, banks were paying.
Wow. Really? Okay. Feel free, because this is like oral history, so anybody who has anything to add. Okay, and this is an example, like before they built the Italian church, this is in front of Madonna Perpetua Sicuro. This is the Italians, because they used to celebrate a feast there as well. Okay, so now this park is really interesting, because today nobody ever talks about this park in terms of the oral histories, in terms of my generation or the younger people, but the old people always talked about this park. And they used to come here on Sundays. Now, I'm sure it wasn't landscaped as nicely as it is today, because we have to remember, when we look at think of old places, it's not like it is today. And one of the things that struck me about this park was that was Malvina Dell'Elce. She said to me, she goes, they used to call this Il Parco dei Sospiri, the Park of Sighs. And this really struck me, because in Venice, there's Il Ponte dei Sospiri, the Bridge of Sighs, right? And why is it called the Bridge of Sighs? Because that was the last, when the prisoners were sent to jail, prison, that was their last view of Venice. And so they were, right? So somehow they nicknamed this the Park of Sighs, because the people used to come here and complain. Right?
They still do.
All these immigrants. Now you have a guy like Jack, okay, for example, who had the barbershop here until he was 9 years old. And most of these people came after the post-World War, like our parents a lot. They were boarders. They were boarding at somebody's house, right? And some had good experiences and some had terrible experiences. Now, Jack would tell me that where he was boarding on the corner of Beaulieu, by the lane there, on Beaulieu and Springland, they would take his food away from him. It was really dirty. It was so bad that he would go to the restaurant there on Monk and Springland to take a shower, to use it, not to take a shower, but to wash up, to use that bathroom. So now think about it. If you're boarding and you're in a really bad condition, you can't socialize with anybody. You can't meet anybody. So you need public spaces. And this was a public space that was used by the Italians to come and meet people. So they would come here and they would complain, oh, it was so nice in my place, oh, this and that, oh my God, oh, I can't, but it was a way of like, it was like their Dr. Phil show live, where they could vent. Yeah, but it was also an employment office. Yeah. Because you got to remember, Ville Emard is all about informality. And so what would happen is, like the men used to come here and they wouldn't say, oh, hi, how are you? They would come up to you and go, oh, hi, are you working? Is there a job for me? Hi, are you working? Is there a job for me? You know, and it was funny was that, yeah, c'è la job, because they said it, so many different people said the same thing to me. So it was obviously ingrained in their, like, this collective memory. So they would come here and try to find work, because at that time it's not like today where, like, immigrants, they get like education, right, English second language, and they get this and they get that. At that time they had nothing, so they had to improvise. They had no Medicare, they had no Social Security, they had no welfare, they had no doctors, no chômage, nothing. So somehow they had to improvise amongst themselves, and this was a place they would come to improvise and to get jobs. Now, right?
As it should be today. So
well, yeah, but today, no, but you see, like, that's the thing, there's so much, right? And in those days, what people don't realize is that when the immigrants came then, okay, for them to arrive, if they came with zero, they were already ahead. Most of them came with less than zero because they had to sell stuff and make debts to pay the trip. So by the time they landed on this soil, they were at minus, they weren't even at zero. Zero would have been like, oh wow, this is great, let alone $50 in your pocket.